Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Kathleen?
Good, good.
So good to see you again. It's been a while since we hopped on a call and recorded, but I think because of all the disruptions, today would be a good time to talk about that.
I agree. We love disruption.
I mean, we could or we couldn't, and I think that also is one of the things that we're going to chat about today because disruptions, whether they're in our private life or our workplace, they happen every single day. It's one of the most reliable things in our lives, and we've all gone through it, regardless of what it is. So disruptions, I think, is something that we can have two reactions to: our unchosen reaction, so our physical reaction to it. If somebody gives us a fright, we can, jump, or if we are in a challenging situation, we can become anxious. And then there are the chosen ways that we react to these disruptions. And I think that's where our power is. So, Kathleen, can you tell me about one of the disruptions that you're facing today?
We love disruption. Yeah, so we're getting ready to record, and magically in my backyard is a jackhammer being used by a human who I'm really focusing on. He's a kind man doing his job. However, I didn't know he was going to be in my backyard today. So I said, okay, what's my choice? I really have to focus on being in the present moment with you. And how do I do that? Well, I have to do that by taking deep breaths. We always talk about tips to share with young professionals who are looking at how to manage themselves in the workplace. And so I was sharing with you earlier before we started recording. It's like, okay, I have a choice. I have to be in the space and hold it for myself, for you, for our audience that's going to be listening. So I'm like taking a deep breath, kind of grounding myself here and really focusing my energy on my heart and being present, because like I could go to crazy town. Those that know me, boy, I got a boatload of energy. You want anything done, you bring me on. And I can derail things so easily. So I was thinking this morning, like, I don't want to derail this conversation. So I have to be fully present. Once I realize, I'm like, okay, I hear you. So it's like that acknowledgement, that recognizing, okay, there's a jackhammer in my backyard going on right now. And thinking about that, like pulling it back into the workplace. If I'm at a desk doing a job, working, head down, and a human walks in, at that moment, we all have a choice. We have a choice to pause, take a breath, and then, recognize there's someone in front of us. And how we choose to react in that moment is a choice. So we have to really like take a breath, go to our heart, and be kind, and understand that that disruption is, from my perspective, 9 times out of 10, an opportunity to grow. So yeah, I could have been on crazy town by the time we got on this morning to tape, because of the jackhammer. But those humans in our backyard are doing good work that we asked them to do. So I need to not give it any energy, be kind, and show up, because that's our job today. And that's what happens in the workplace every day. And how we handled that disruption is, I think, again, it's a learning opportunity. So what do you think?
Well, I think that's a brilliant example. And thank you for walking me through those steps and getting some important pointers from you. It One of those things is when we hit our flow state, it's always so difficult to hit that flow state. So when we are disrupted from it, or when we are distracted from it, we have to choose to, recognize the disruption, um, choose to either redirect that disruption or deal with it. And that's when we go into our heart space and say, is this an important disruption? Can I learn from it, or shall I put it off until later? We breathe and we refocus our energy, and then we can decide, um, is this disruption worth reacting to, or can I refocus and get back into what I was doing? So, I mean, the jackhammer is a brilliant example of something that's happened to you this morning.
Well, and you know what? I haven't done this well. It doesn't happen overnight. We have to learn. It's like that muscle. You have to practice. You have to embrace that you're going to do it really awfully out the gate. And then the more that I think I've practiced over the years, I didn't do it well as an early professional at all. I mean, you go back and ask people I used to work with, absolutely not. I didn't do it well. and the awareness piece, like you said, the awareness of, oh, this is how I was showing up. And now, like, okay, I'm recognizing I'm showing up that way. I don't want to do that anymore. So that constant focus back, take a breath. Hey, I see you. And then to your point, which I love, is like, what's the learning? And that's normally what I do is like, what's the learning in this disruption, no matter what it is? That's choosing, because, based on our, I love me some assessments. So based on my MBTI preferences, you know, my J preference is like, you know, go down, here's the plan, stay the plan, but stay the course. And the disruption gives us an opportunity to see things from a different perspective. So I love that of, oh, the disruption for me, especially the past, I'd say 5 years, has been, oh, wow, all these disruptions are giving me a new opportunity to do things differently and to show up differently in all types of spaces. So I'm sure that you've had the same opportunity in the past couple of years for you too, of like, oh, okay, what do I do with all of this disruption and learning?
Absolutely, because life is about the journey and not the destination. And we have this plan in our minds that like a 5, 10, 15-year plan, and then life happens. We were talking about the biggest stressors in life, and those are divorce or separation, moving home, a new job, loss of a loved one or death, and then there's retirement, and one of my favorites recently is transition into adulthood.
Yeah.
And that is not necessarily a juvenile to an adult age, but it comes with the maturity of life where we become accountable for ourselves, to ourselves, and we lead ourselves, so we don't let life happen to us. So these are the biggest stressors in our life, and these are things that will happen to us, and when we react with intentionality, and these things that will happen along the way, they make us who we are. In the last 6 months, I have moved house. I have started a new job. I have lost a loved one. Um, Someone close to me is going through a divorce. And I feel, and every day's adulting is a challenge. So it's these disruptions that give me the opportunity to grow. And that is something that when you adopt a gratefulness mindset, it will definitely help you to be kind to yourself and move with more grace in life. And you'll see that when you let go and stop trying to control everything, then the process will unfold naturally. And
Yeah, I love what you just
yeah,
said.
so life
When we
like it.
yeah, when we choose not to control, because all of those shifts, that you just described, they can happen to us, or we can say, hey, here's what's going on. Now, again, kind of shifting to what's possible and how do we, choose to show up for ourselves. And yeah, the adulting thing for me, totally true. Like my colleague Julia and I, special shout out, Julia, thanks for all of your support. Uh, choosing to lead our own lives, what you said is so true, because it is our life. However, if we weren't brought up that way, if we were brought up to be told what to do about our life, instead of giving us, and this is a whole nother podcast, choosing to have a voice and choosing to lead from a space of wholeness, like our colleagues at Wild Leaders, that's a different type of a human that's going to show up. Even though we're broken, we're still a whole human and continuing to evolve, like you said. So, I mean, if you were going to give advice to early professionals who are going through similar things that you just went through, like what would you share with them? What tips would you give them to be able to say, hey, I'm experiencing everything that you just went through, Janita. How can I do life when I don't know how to do life because I haven't given myself permission to show up as a whole human? What would you say to them?
I would say breathe, because you may not see the wood for the trees and things may be really, really difficult for you right now, but try and look at the bigger picture and see that it's happening to you right now, but it's going to change your path for a little while, but you'll get back onto the path that you want to be. And the only person that can tell you which direction you're going in or how you're supposed to do something is you. So learn how to refocus in the moment, learn how to prevent the tunnel vision, prevent the anxiety from setting in, breathing, regrounding yourself when something feels overwhelming. So that's the immediate reaction. And then once you've found yourself in a slightly calmer headspace, look at the bigger picture and just remind yourself that you're not the first person this is happening to. You won't be the last person that this is happening to. And so it would help to get a mentor or talk to somebody you trust, somebody who's probably been through this or something similar, and get out of that anxious mindset or worried mindset and get some perspective on it and some context. So whether that looks like a supervisor, a boss, somebody in your organization, or even organization adjacent, talk to somebody, even a therapist, or even someone like Kathleen.
We all need a coach. We all need a mentor. Yeah, the first time someone said to me, "Hey, what support do you need?" And of course, I said something snarky because that was my derailment. I'm going to totally derail from even dealing with what was just in front of me. I'm like, I don't need support. I have a bra. I mean, that's snarkiness and humor, and that's how do we deal with those uncomfortable things? Is some people use humor to do that, to not really like dig in. But yeah, I mean, I have quite a few people in my life, my personal board of directors, and you're one of them, of course, Janina. It's like, oh, hey, here's what's going on today. Here's what I'm feeling. And I need some support to kind of talk it through, because you're right. We create a story in our head that's not true. And then we have to like unpack it and get rid of it, and then really choose to show up. And how do we do that in the moment? When we're by ourselves, that's a totally different thing. And I don't know what your thoughts are, but for me, when I'm by myself and I'm trying to like ground back into the moment, yes, the heart focused breathing, I take 3 deep breaths in and out to really like ground back here in the current moment. I used to use a rubber band on my wrist, which would snap me back. I had one of those little rings, and I shared this in the past. My cute little turtle, which I used to like rub this in my hand, again, just really trying to stay present, which again is a choice. To your point from earlier, is then I'm not going to react in a way and choose to put my energy. It's like, where do I feel it in my body? And that's really that self-awareness piece, which I know I did lousily. I know that's not even a word, but I didn't do that well at all in the beginning of my career, like really understanding how that energy inside of my body, I had a choice where to put it. And then it came out my mouth, which sometimes was extremely volcanic. So yeah, I mean, in that moment, to your point, it's, how can we create techniques for us to self-regulate, to be able to then show up in a way that's kind and supportive. So yeah, is there one or two things you can think of that you have found worked well for you in the moment when you want to like, lean out instead of lean into the space, that's worked well for you?
I think about the emotional side of it
Mm,
versus the rational side of it.
sure.
Emotions are important, but rationality is something that will help us manage our emotions. So when I become angry at something, I think I may say something now that I will regret later. So pausing, pausing and recognizing what I'm feeling is probably a flash reaction, and I need to just let that subside before I give my considered reaction. So pausing, definitely just allowing this has happened.
I
It's
see
not going to
you.
dictate how I'm going to. I see you. However, I'm going to choose how to react because I've said things before in anger, in grief, in like don't make a decision when you're extremely happy or extremely sad. That's a cliche for a reason. So yeah, my biggest top tip is pausing
Yeah,
before I make
I
a decision.
I totally agree. It's like, okay, I feel you, angry monster who wants to come out of my mouth. It's not going to be a kind person. So let's like figure out later where that's coming from. Sometimes it's just us choosing our energy in the moment. to look at the other person in a way that's not kind. So then again, to your point, it's like the pause. I love that. Yeah, the learning is in the pause. And, when I worked in higher ed, one of my mentors, Jenny, Derek, said, sometimes you have to go slow to go fast.
Absolutely. And I found that in a professional workspace, giving somebody else the benefit of the doubt is going to serve you in good stead. Because coming from a background where it's split second decisions and explaining yourself later, it doesn't work in a place where a larger organization with bureaucratic processes, things aren't going to happen on the drop of a dime. So allowing somebody the benefit of the doubt, even if they are wrong or if they have been making a bad decision,
Sure.
it allow you to put your best foot forward, and then whatever they've decided, they will deal with the repercussions, good or bad.
Yeah.
So, Kathleen, what is your, as an established professional, to managing disruptions in your life? Your top tip for managing disruptions?
For me, it's self-regulation and really being curious about myself. And to your point, being curious about in the moment, if I'm with someone else, again, to be able to breathe and stay in that moment. So it really is remaining constant in the moment, not too high, not too low, really dialing into the channel that someone else is on. And again, just that breathing, that heart focused breathing to stay in the moment, because right now, that disruption that is in the background, that jackhammer, I can choose to totally give all of my attention and energy to it, or I can choose to breathe and stay in this moment with you and really hold the space, which takes intentionality and recognition. So I know that's more than one tip. So just appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, sorry to interrupt, but like that's all part of a bigger piece. And
Yeah.
you're such an advocate for knowing thyself. And I mean, I've learned a lot from you. So if if I had to summarize, and feel free to add or correct, but it would be what I've learned is, when faced with a disruption, the best thing we can do to, future proof ourselves and build resilience into our existence, so that when disruptions happen, we can not be knocked off path, but like restabilize and carry on, is to know ourselves, so that when disruptions happen, we can use the self-regulation techniques and refocus ourselves, and then focus on the bigger picture and carry on.
Well said, my colleague. Well said.
Thank you, wise one. You've taught me well.
We've taught each other. So until next time, this is Let's Get Real. See you next time.